Lesson 3, Part 1. Have you ever heard of a Sunday morning Christian? A Sunday morning Christian is a person who goes to church every Sunday to be seen, sings very loudly to be heard, and puts large bills in the collection plate. Then in business, he does everything possible to steal and cheat. He lies about his friends and enemies, and he cheats on his wife. Yes, he puts on a big show of being a Christian for a few hours every Sunday, but when it comes to living every minute of the day after the manner of Jesus, he fails miserably. So what does this have to do with ceremonial magic? Like the Sunday morning Christians who think that Christianity is something you do once a week, most people think that magic is something you do. This is totally wrong. Magic is not something that you do. Magic is something that you are. To really be a magician means that your mindset is totally concentrated around magic. This means that no matter what you are doing, thinking, or saying, there is always in your mind the idea of how everything is related magically. Thus, if you are talking politics, you might be thinking about how a politician is able to convince people to vote for him or her without ever mentioning a political platform. Certainly, this is a powerful form of magic, convincing people to do things for no apparent reason. When you're cooking, you might be thinking about how the element of fire affects meats, their byproducts, and vegetables. When magic becomes your way of thinking, acting, and breathing, then you will be a magician. This brings us back for a moment to the Hermetic order of the Golden Dawn. There were really 6 degrees in the Golden Dawn, in which, if you did well, would allow you to seek entrance into the inner order, the RRETAC. If you have studied a bit about the Golden Dawn, this may shock you. The Golden Dawn was never a magical order. The inner order, the Rose Robe at RA Crucis, the Red Rose, and Gold Cross RRETAC, did practice practical magic. The outer order, the Golden Dawn, did not. The Golden Dawn did have several purposes in the order's overall scheme. It allowed people to meet and learn to have confidence in each other. It allowed people to learn the theories and philosophies which would later allow them to do practical magic. But for the purpose of this course, the most important aspects are that it initiated people and got them attuned to the 4 magical elements. Obviously, I cannot initiate you via a book, but no one can. But what is the need and purpose of initiation anyway? Initiation has 2 aspects, practical and mystical. On a practical level, initiation gives you nothing, rather it allows you to begin to do a certain prescribed system of work. As an example, a person initiated into the neophyte degree of the Golden Dawn was to begin learning the Hebrew alphabet, symbols of the planets, and the zodiac. And he or she was also to begin doing the Lbrp. The word initiation comes from the Latin root, which means to begin. The mystical aspects of initiation are a different story. Imagine a private club which you want to enter. You knock on the door and the bouncer, who doesn't recognize you, sends you your way. Then a person who knows both you and the bouncer comes up and introduces you to each other. From that time on, you're a welcome guest in the private club. In this little story, the introduction to a higher, stronger force in the form of a bouncer was your initiation. In reality, the mystical aspects of initiation not only introduce you to higher powers, or if you prefer, your higher self, but it also causes spiritual, emotional, and physical effects within you which allow you to be easily recognized in the future by the higher powers. There is another way to cause the inner changes which allow this recognition. You could also go up to a bouncer day after day, week after week, and month after month if need be. Talk to the bouncer and bring him presents and friendship until finally, without a third-party introduction, the bouncer allows you into the club. The way that this can be done is through performing the work of this course. In the Golden Dawn, an initiation into the neophyte grade gave you a membership, companionship with others of like mind, and allowed both you and the other members of the order to see how well you would work together. Since you are not becoming a member of any order, that particular initiation is not vital to your advancement. The next 4 grades of the order try to balance you with the 4 magical elements, and in fact, were sometimes referred to as the elementary grades. We will be learning about the magical elements, earth, air, fire, and water, one at a time and in their proper order. The neophyte grade of the Golden Dawn was not related to the elements. In fact, it was not considered to be the 1st degree of the order. It was called the 0 grade. The next grade, known as the 1st degree, or 1 equals 10, 1st degree equals the 10th Sephirah, was associated with the element of earth, so it is there we must now begin. We must become in total harmony with this element. Each of the 4 magical elements are representative of alternate aspects of the qualities of temperature and humidity. Since we are working with the elements of earth, let's examine its qualities. Obviously, earth is not wet, nor is it warm, except when infused with the elements of fire as seen in lava. Therefore, we can say that the element earth has the qualities of being dry and cool. The next step is to learn how to become aware of and in control of the element in your day-to-day life. Exercise 1. Make a list of things which have the combined qualities of dryness and coolness. However, don't do this just out of the head. Rather, make a list of earth things that you see each day. Practice this for 1 week. Be sure to record the results each day in your magical diary. Exercise 2. Find a place filled with nature, such as a field or park. Wear as little clothing as you can if possible. Nudity is best. And sit or lie on the ground so that as much of your skin as possible is touching the ground. This is especially easy for women, as they can simply wear a flowing skirt with no underwear and sit on the ground with the skirt spread out. In this way, there is nothing between the skin and the earth. Spending some time contemplating, feeling the coolness and dryness of the earth. You should do this at least 3 times within a week. If you happen to find a grassy spot or an area which has recently been watered, you may have a feeling that the magical element of earth has wetness in it. There are two responses to this. First, temperature and humidity are relative. It may be damp compared to the desert sand, but it is dry compared to ocean water. At least it shows that you are thinking about the elements. However, the real answer to the idea that earth has some wetness to it is that you are mistaking the physical soil for the magical archetypal element of earth. A physical representation allows lax impurities of the archetype. Since we are a physical and learn through our senses, we move in our minds from the physical imperfect object to the pure archetype. It is in this way we gain knowledge of the magical elements. Exercise 3. Spend a period of up to 3 minutes, no more, once a day, imagining that you are the element earth. Feel the heaviness, the slowness, the coolness, the dryness of earth. Feel the way you can absorb the pains and problems of the world. However, do not actually do so. Become earth. Do this exercise for at least a week before moving to the next exercise. Exercise 4. Once you have learned to be earth, the next step is to control the element earth. Take a moment and imagine yourself to be earth. Bring the feeling from the previous exercise into your consciousness. Next, hold your hands 9 to 12 inches apart, palms facing each other. Imagine a bottle or box between your hands. Now, as you exhale, visualize all of the earth element which is in you going out with your breath and into the container between your hands. 3 to 5 breaths should be enough to fill it. Then with 3 breaths, inhale it back into you and go back to normal consciousness. The test. This will allow you to see whether or not you really have become not only in harmony with the magical element earth, but also see if you are able to control the element. The next time that you feel lightheaded, giddy, unstable, not able to do your work, etc., form the container of earth as described in the previous exercise, exercise 4. Then once the container of earth has been formed, with 1 big inhalation, draw the contents of the container back into you. Within 5 minutes, you should feel stable and grounded. The next time that you feel bloated, overweight, slowed down, etc., again, form the container of earth, only this time visualize a large hole in the ground and drop the container into that hole. Quickly see the hole close. You should feel lighter in a few minutes, but it may be necessary to repeat the exercise up to 5 times to really feel light, but not like an airhead, and energetic. When you have success or succeeded at both parts of this test, you will have mastered the element of earth. However, if you do not succeed at it within a few days or weeks, don't worry about it. Just keep practicing. Remember, initiation is a beginning, not an ending. Continue with your studies in this course. Do not stop. Wait until you perfect your mastery of the element. Be sure to record the results of your experiments, whether they be good or bad or indifferent, in your magical diary. Part 2. Starting this part of this lesson, go back and reread the sections on the Kabbalah in the last lesson. If you have not read them for a while, don't be surprised if the material now makes more sense to you than it did at your earlier readings. This is because your mind has had the time to digest the information subconsciously and intuitively come to an understanding of what was described in the last lesson. In fact, this is a good reason to periodically review all of these lessons. We are going to be looking again at that central glyph of the Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. There are many ways to study the tree, and in this part of the lesson we are going to look at a few of the ways to analyze the symbol. The three pillars. Look at the Tree of Life that you will find on page 87. You will see that the figure has been divided into three large pillars. The pillar on the left is composed of the 3rd, 5th, and 8th Sephiroth and is known as the Pillar of Severity. On the right, the pillar is composed of the 2nd, 4th, and 7th Sephiroth, being opposite of the pillar on the left. The one on the right is known as the Pillar of Mercy. Balancing the two outer pillars is the middle pillar. It is composed of the 1st, 6th, 9th, and 10th Sephiroth and is known as the Pillar of Mildness. It is interesting to note that the Pillar of Severity on the left is considered to be the female, while the Pillar of Mercy is considered to be the masculine, a reversal of what might be considered to be the archetypal norm. However, if you study Jungian theories of archetypes, you will find that just as there is the kind, helping, beneficial Great Mother, so too is there the feminine element which works against you, known as the Terrible Mother. See, for example, myths of evil older women, Hansel and Gretel, and deceptive and powerful younger ones, Circe. On page 88 is another version of the Tree of Life. On it, each Sephiroth has its name both in translated Hebrew and in the English translation of the Hebrew, compared to the two versions of the Tree of Life, and follow along as the meanings of the pillars are described. The Pillar of Mercy. To be merciful, we must have the wisdom to see the results of our actions and realize that victory can come about through wisdom and the ability to endure. Show mercy instead of short temper, not just through strength alone. The Pillar of Severity. To be severe, we must have an understanding of the laws of the universe and the strength to empower them justly, but never yielding to giving mercy only justice. This will result in an outward power and splendor which hides the lack of humanity and mercy which reside beneath the surface. The Pillar of Mildness. To be mild, we must realize that we live in the kingdom of earth and we are not gods. Therefore, in whatever we strive, we must seek a foundation of beauty by trying to avoid the extremes of over-severity and too much mercy. In this way, we can seek to crown our efforts with a success. Thus, here is in one way to understand the Tree of Life by the systems of the three pillars. If we are not successful in our efforts towards achieving any particular goal, we can see where we are unbalanced, i.e., focused toward one side of the tree. We can then seek to add some of the balancing characteristics from the opposite side of the tree. The result moves us to the center, toward the Pillar of Mildness, which could also be called the Pillar of True Manifestation. The three triangles. The next system of looking at the tree is known as the three triangles. As can be seen from the diagram on page 90, the Tree of Life can be divided into three triangles, the top one pointing upward, the other two pointing downwards. The Celestial Triangle. The uppermost triangle, composed of the first three Sephiroth, is known as the Celestial Triangle. It starts as a single point, which means that it comes from the unity of God and dividing into two sides. This shows that although divinity is a unity, everything which manifests can be seen in the form of duality, male and female, up and down, in and out, hot and cold, etc. It is one of the duties of the magician to learn to overcome everything which seems to be in opposition in order to achieve unity with divinity. This is an ancient secret of the Kabbalah and is understood by tantrics. It will be discussed in a later lesson. As an example, the magician must learn that day is not opposite to night, but rather both day and night are a natural part of Earth's spinnings on its axis. Also, it is in this uppermost triangle that we can see those qualities of being who are truly celestial in nature. They have wisdom and understanding. Thus, they are capable of wearing the crown of creation over both the visible physical world and the higher planes of existence. The Moral Triangle. The middle triangle, which points down, is called the Moral Triangle. A combination of strength and mercy results in the development of beauty. If we have too much mercy, we become weak and unable to complete our goals. People take advantage of us and we die young. On the other hand, if we show only strength and are totally unmerciful, we might be able to achieve our goals, although never without difficulty. But we will have no friends, have no real love, and our success becomes meaningless. By developing strength and mercy, we exhibit a beauty which aids us in achieving all our goals and gives us happiness in what we do achieve. The Mundane Triangle. The lowest triangle is called the Mundane Triangle. It is an apt name. It concerns physical plane success only, not mental and spiritual ones, as are found in the moral and celestial triangles. Here, a victory followed by too much mercy leads to defeat, while the splendor of a victory, if not tempered with mercy, leads to revolution and ruin. When balanced, a foundation for success is in this world exists in it, and a kingdom as represented by the one Sephiroth hanging pendant to the three triangles may be founded. As you can see, each system of understanding the tree of life helps to explain other systems. Go back for a second and look at the diagram of the three pillars. We can say that the path of a mystic or yogi whose intent is to rejoin with the divine at Kether, the first Sephiroth, follows the middle pillar. This path, sometimes known as the path of the arrow, is like the path an arrow flies if pointed straight up from Malkut to Keter. The yogi sits in meditation until he or she can simply hop from the lowest to the highest. Now, looking at a full diagram of the tree of life, you can understand that the path of magician leads from Sephiroth to Sephiroth, going through and learning about each one while also covering each of the connecting 22 paths, winding about like a snake. In fact, the path of the magician is sometimes known as the path of the serpent. At each Sephiroth on each of the connecting paths, the magician learns how new things and has new and exciting experiences with the mystic or yogi will never know. The yogi merely sits until ready to make the jump. The magician takes the circuitous route. Each can achieve the goal of unity with divinity, white magic, in the same amount of time. It is their own determination and abilities which speed or delay the coming of unity or nirvana, of the ultimate mystical ecstasy of the knowledge and conversation of our holy guardian angel. I like to use an understanding of the three triangles as a basis for psychology. By understanding which Sephiroth person is at, I can recommend that the person needs to do for improvement. If, for example, a person always finds himself or herself being taken advantage of, I believe that person to be in the Sephiroth Hesed. Number 4, mercy. That person needs to develop more inner strength enough to say no to someone who's trying to take advantage. And instead of being the person everyone thinks of as being the one to take advantage of, people will be able to learn for the first time what he or she thinks about, cares about, and wants to do. They will see this person for the beautiful entity that person is. The four worlds. Another method of looking at the tree is called the method of the four worlds. Look at the diagram on page 92 showing one of the systems of the understanding the four worlds. Dividing the lines has been drawn between the triangles as previously described. Thus each triangle and the singleton Sephiroth represent a world. The topmost triangle, composed of the first, second, and third Sephiroth, is known as the Ah-Olam Atzilah, which means the world of archetypes of emanations. It is the divine world wherein exist the thoughts of God. It is this world that the aspects of the powers of God, as represented by the names of God, are said to exist. The middle triangle, composed of the fourth, fifth, and sixth Sephiroth, as known as the Ah-Olam Briyai, which means the world of creation. It is not yet real in a physical sense. It is far more of the conscious mind. It is in this world that the archangels are said to exist. The bottommost triangle is formed of the 7th, 8th, and 9th Sephiroth and is known as the Ah-Olam Yetzirah, or the world of formation. It is considered by some to be equal to the astral plane, which is the basis for everything that exists in the physical universe. It is in this world that the various orders of angels are said to exist. The 10th Sephiroth in this system is known as the Ah-Olam Asai, the world of action. It is the world wherein the four elements and hence the physical universe exists, wherein physical actions can occur. But what good does this four-world system do? Let's assume that God wishes to create a universe. First thing God will need to do is perceive the need for something. Here, God is operating in the world of Absolute. Next, God will see that a universe composed of air, earth, fire, water, and living things was necessary. Here, God would be operating in the world of Bria. Next, God would begin doing whatever was necessary to create the universe. Here, God would be operating in the world of Yetzirah. Finally, God would put life and action into the formed parts of the universe and would be operating in the world of Asai. But how does this apply to us? Let us say that you need something to hold your papers when doing a ritual. You see a need and therefore are in the world of Absolute. Next, you begin to visualize it. It is made of wood, higher in the back than in the front, so that the papers are at a nice angle. And there is a ledge at the bottom of the front so that the papers do not slide off. Here you're in the world of Brie. Now you go out and buy the wood, cut it to size, assemble the stands, finish it with an attractive and appropriate paint job. Here you're in the world of formation. Aholam Yetzirah. Finally, you put it to use and you are there and operating in the world of Asai. If you have ever desired anything, but have not been able to bring it into your own world, then it is most likely that you have overlooked the importance of one of the four worlds. We will learn more about the process of bringing things into our lives through a magic in later lessons. As stated earlier, the Kabbalah has changed over time and has not been a static, unchanging system. There are other versions of the four worlds. One system holds that the divisions of the four worlds should show only the topmost Sephiroth Keter as being in the first world. The next two Sephiroth are in the second world. Sephiroth 4 through 9 make up the third world of Yetzirah, and the fourth world is made up only of the final Sephiroth Malkut. Another system holds that there is a full Tree of Life within each one of the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, thus there would be 100 Sephiroth to deal with. You could have Keter and Keter, Hoshma and Keter, and up to 10 different Sephiroth in each Sephiroth. With this system, the worlds get quite complicated. Another system put 4 Tree of Lives on top of each other, with each tree representing a world. See the diagram opposite. In this system, there are 40 Sephiroth. Finally, another system says that there is a full Tree of Life within each of the 40 Sephiroth for a total of 400 Sephiroth. Although going into detail on the meaning of this last system is far too advanced and complicated for this course, you might wish to spend some time contemplating the different worlds and the various ideas of Tree of Life within the Sephiroth. This section is a very special part of the book. What this part of the lesson consists of is simple, safe, and practical information on what meditation is and on how to meditate. Although you are encouraged to meditate on a daily basis as a necessary part of your own spiritual development, you are free to practice the techniques given here as you will. It is not part of your suggested daily ritual practice. I do strongly suggest, however, that you either make time to practice it daily for at least several months, or do include it as part of your daily ritual. In recent years, there have been quite a furor on concerning how to meditate and the benefits you can obtain from the practice of meditation. There have been many books which have seen print over the last 15 years or so with the titles such as How to Meditate or 101 Ways to Meditate or something similar. Most of these books are good points and bad points, beginning with trying to define exactly what meditation is. Without a definition of what meditation is, you can hardly be taught on how to do it. A group of authors try to equate meditation with contemplation or concentration. This is probably because A, their teachers didn't know any better, B, they didn't know any better, or C, they simply looked up the meaning of the word meditation in a dictionary. Most English dictionaries will define meditation as some form of contemplation. The two words are seemingly almost synonyms. Thus, those teachers who equate meditation with contemplation would have you simply look at an object, listen to a sound, or contemplate a thought, and call it meditation. It is not. Meditation is derived from an Eastern idea based on contemplation, but silence, the silence of the mind. In the book Meditation and the Bible, Ray Kaplan clearly shows that similar techniques were used by the ancient Hebrew mystics and prophets. Unfortunately, most of the ancient Hebrew techniques have been lost, along with the writings of the Merkaba mystics. But here is the basic theory behind meditation. Try for a second to rid your mind of all thought, to make it perfectly quiet. Unless you know what real meditation is and have practiced it, it is inevitable that you will fail at this seemingly simple request. A voice will run through your head saying such things as, "There, I'm quiet now," or "I'm doing this, right?" or "How long do I have to keep this up?" In true meditation, the goal is to silence the inner voice. In another lesson, we will learn that our unconscious or subconscious is our direct link to divinity, to God, since by definition, God must be all knowledgeable. Otherwise, something else could be greater than God. If there is something greater than God, then that greater thing must be the true God, and what we have been calling God is only a false God or a subordinate deity. Our subconscious must have a link to all knowledge, to the secret wisdom of the universe, to enlightenment. But that little voice, which constantly is speaking in our head, usually shuts out the even smaller voice of our subconscious. One of the things which can occur in our dreams is that our subconscious speaks to us through symbols which are sometimes difficult to understand. In true meditation, our subconscious can speak to our conscious directly, sharing its wisdom. What follows is a method for true meditation. There are other well-publicized schools of meditation which charge over $100 to teach you a technique for meditation. Some of these schools brag about how their techniques result in lower blood pressure and increased IQs. This bragging is absurd. Any form of relaxation, such as the relaxation ritual, will result in a lower blood pressure. Also, the same social scientists who use to say a person's IQ did not change over a lifetime are now teaching classes on how to raise your IQ through study and concentration. Although true meditation will have the effect of increasing one's IQ and lowering blood pressure, these are merely additional side benefits. The true benefits of real meditation is the experience of oneness with divinity, that form of white magic known as enlightenment or cosmic consciousness. True meditation has 3 steps. 1. Relaxation. The purpose of this step is to get rid of any physical tension or pain so that the physical body will not get in the way of the next steps. Step 2. Contemplation. The purpose of this step is to completely unite your consciousness with a sound, object, idea, drawing, etc. Notice that relaxation and contemplation are both parts of the true meditation, but not to constitute the whole. 3. Negation. In this step, the step which is usually left out of the lesson on how to meditate, you eliminate from your mind all consciousness of what you have been contemplating. Since your consciousness has become united with what you have been contemplating, your consciousness, also leaves when you get rid of the object that you're contemplating. The result, the state wherein your consciousness is not blocking and already exists the link between you and the divine. This is white magic, the state of true bliss, and is the ultimate and only goal of true meditation. Unless you try it and achieve the true meditative state, no words can fully explain it. It is beyond conscious communication of thought. In the following form of meditation, you will be focusing on a familiar object. Some traditional books would have you meditate on the Tafta symbols, especially colored geometric figures including triangles, squares, and ovoid shapes, which represent the elements. While this is fine for cultures where visual stimulation is not as complex as in the Western film and television loving cultures, I have found through research during my classes that Westerners often need something different, something more visually complex. A technique of true meditation. Step 1. Perform the relaxation ritual. Step 2. Perform the Lbrp. Always be sure to do a protection ritual before meditation. Step 3. Shuffle the major arcana cards. Practice this for several weeks with the cards 6, 7, 10, 13, 15, and 18 left out, and randomly select one to use. This will be the object which you will use for the contemplation part of this technique. Step 4. If you feel the need to do the relaxation ritual again, do so. Step 5. Scanning. This step works in a way similar in nature to the method by which a television produces a picture. In a picture tube, as a device called an electron gun, which shoots electrons in a small single beam towards the screen, forming a scan line across the front of the tube. The beam from the electron gun then jumps back to just below the first line and repeats the process. If you look closely at the front of your set when it is on, you can see the lines, but you cannot see the lines being made because the process is done so fast that your eyes cannot follow it, so it appears that you have a solid picture. In this meditation technique, scanning is done this way. 1. Start by looking at the upper right hand corner of your chosen card. 2. Look at a horizontal strip of the card about ½ inch from top to bottom. Move your vision from right to left across the width of this card. Thus, you should have a strip of the card in your mind composed of the uppermost ½ inch of the card. 3. Now return to the right hand side of the card and scan again across the card from right to left, covering another ½ inch immediately below your previous scan. 4. Repeat this process until you have totally covered the card. What you are doing is observing the card from top to bottom, a ½ inch at a time, trying to remember as much of each strip as you can as you scan. But don't worry about perfection. You will get better with practice. Step 6. Contemplation. In this step, you will become fully involved with the object, but simply the technique is to reproduce the previous step of scanning, but within your mind's eye. 1. Put down the card so that you can no longer see its face. 2. By memory, go through and visualize the entire scanning process. Go one strip at a time until you have produced the best of your ability the entire card in your imagination. First time you do this, you may miss many things in colors, and perhaps you will only be able to recall and mentally create the outline of shapes that were on the card. It is not important that you are completely accurate with your visualization, but your visualization abilities will improve with practice. This does not mean that it is permissible to be lazy or overall brief with this process. You must do the very best that you can. This step should take between 3 to 4 minutes, but if you wish, it may take longer. Step 7. Negation. 1. Start again in the upper right hand corner of the card, which you have now visualized through the scanning procedure. Take the topmost scan and, moving from right to left, erase the image, that is, de-scan it. Make it disappear in your mind's eye. You should still see a card, but with its top ½ inch removed. 2. Return to the top right hand corner of what is left of your visualized cards and take off another strip. 3. Continue this de-scanning, erasing process until the entire card is gone from your mind. Duration of this step, about 1.5 to 3 minutes maximum. Step 8. The state of true meditation. At this point, a very interesting phenomenon will occur. Your consciousness, which has been caught up in the act of de-scanning the visualized card, will also be gone. Actually, it will only be silent. By the time the card is gone, your consciousness will be silent and the monologue in your head will be stopped. This will give your subconscious a chance to speak to you and give you possibly important messages and information. Usually the first time somebody tries the process described above, the true meditative state lasts only an instant. The inner voice returns and asks something like, "Am I silent? Did I do this right?" As soon as the voice comes back, the meditation is over. As you practice this technique, you will be able to make that instant or true meditation last a minute, 5 minutes, or even more. As this state stretches out in length, you will have new feelings come over you. A feeling of being in total harmony with the universe, or having all knowledge and knowing that although things must evolve to a better state, all things are exactly as they should be at this instant in time. This is known as the cosmic consciousness or enlightenment. It is, as I have said, really impossible to speak of this state of feeling, this state of existence. You must try it and discover its beauty for yourself. As stated at the beginning of this section, it is not required that you practice meditation, nor is it required that you practice this particular method of meditation. However, sooner or later you will come to realize that meditation should become part of your daily life. When you do decide to meditate on a regular basis, if you choose to use another system of meditation than is described here, do not deceive yourself into thinking that you are really meditating if all you are doing is concentrating on relaxing. Those are aspects of true meditation, but they are not meditation in of themselves. Also, you will find that all of your rituals and exercises will be greatly improved by practicing true meditation. Part 4. In this portion, we will be focusing on what is known as the unwritten Kabbalah. On the next page, you will find a list of correspondences, that is, a list of how various things and ideas correspond with the Sephiroth on the Tree of Life. In this section, you will learn the information necessary to understand the list. As you can see by the left of each row are the numbers 1 through 10. These, as you probably guessed, represent the numbers associated with each of the Sephiroth. The first column gives the names of each Sephiroth as they would be pronounced in Hebrew. The next column gives the translations of those names into English. I would like to mention here that some texts, especially those written for a primarily Jewish readership, sometimes give alternate names and or spellings for the Sephiroth. For example, Geburah is frequently called Pakad, which means fear. However, this type of study falls more appropriately under the subject of the dogmatic Kabbalah, which, for the most part, is beyond the scope and purpose of the present course. The third column is labeled color, QS. Kabbalistically, there are 4 sets of colors, one for each of the 4 Kabbalistic worlds related to the Sephiroth. They are named after the court cards of the minor arcana of the tarot. And the Gold Dawn initiates were expected to know all the color scales. However, for our purposes, the most important version of the colors for the 10 Sephiroth is called the Queen Scale, hence the QS, which are the colors given here. The Queen Scale colors are associated with the world known as Brie. Traditionally, it is believed that it is more important to become familiar with the Queen Scale Sephirotic colors than with the other scales of color. Note that there are 4 colors associated with the 10th Sephiroth. This is because the 10th Sephiroth relates to the earth and the world of the 4 archetypal elements: air, earth, fire, and water. By now, you'll be beginning to become familiar with the element earth as a result of the exercises given earlier in this lesson. You will become familiar with the other elements later in this course. It would be a good idea for you to make up a separate tree of life for each of the columns of correspondences. This can give you a visual image which cannot be duplicated by cerebral left brain mental processes. For the colors, color in each Sephiroth with the appropriate color. The 10th Sephiroth has an X drawn through it and should be colored in like this. Violet and green make olive, orange and green make citron. Orange and violet make the particular shade of brown used here, technically known as russet. The next column associates various scents, odors, and incenses with the Sephiroth. Note that associations for the 5th Sephiroth, Geburah, is listed as tobacco. Today, there are so many adulterates allowed to be added to the tobacco that its purity and therefore its value is questionable. It was originally chosen, according to Aleister Crowley, because tobacco is said to be the favorite scent of men who work hard, and Geburah does mean strength. For a long time, I questioned the value of tobacco as a magical incense, as I would usually just open up a cigarette and drop the generally awful smelling stuff on a block of hard charcoal. Then one day I went into a shop which sells wide varieties of tobacco for pipe smokers. Here I found several relatively untainted tobaccos which have worked excellently for me. Try finding some you like, some which give you a feeling of strength and power. The essence of Geburah. You will never become a magician if all you can do is blindly follow obsolete patterns. Tradition can only be a guide. In fact, it would be appropriate to use any scent which gives you that feeling of strength and power, whether or not it contains tobacco. In a similar manner, you can correct any of the listings on the chart of the Kabbalistic Correspondences so that it is correct for you. It should be apparent to you that at this point that I tend to be eclectic in my beliefs and I welcome change and newness. However, some of the correspondences date back thousands of years. They have lasted this long for only one reason. The thousands of people who have used them have discovered that they are accurate and that they work. Thus, although I do hope that all will closely examine and work with all of the correspondences, you had better have a good valid reason for changing what has worked for so long. The next column relates to Sephiroth to the chakras. Because many people are familiar with the chakras, I have included them here as another way of becoming familiar with the Sephiroth. Unfortunately, deep study of the chakras is not really part of the curricula of this course. If the chakras interest you and you would like to do more study on them, consult the bibliography but for books which go into detail on the subject. The next column gives the god names associated with each of the Sephirah. Remember, although there are many god names, these refer to aspects of a monotheistic deity, not to a polytheistic pantheon. In other words, they represent the faces or potencies of a singular deity. Note here, as shown in the parenthetical note on the page of the Kabbalistic Correspondences, that when you see the letters YHVH as a god name, they should be pronounced as Yud He Vav He. Otherwise, the column is self-explanatory. We have already shown how Sephiroth can be related to the physical body, that is, a person as seen as backing into the tree of life. The next column gives a traditional association. This is followed by a column listing the planets. Note that the first Sephiroth is associated with the first swirlings. This may refer to the original Big Bang, which formed our physical universe, or it may refer to the galactic gas clouds, which, due to gravity, condensed and began to spin. They eventually formed the galaxies and individual star systems, or it may refer to something altogether different. It would not be a vital part of our magical system, so it is not an essential bit of knowledge. The second Sephiroth is related to the entire zodiacal belt, not to the planet as such. The 10th Sephiroth, which is related to the planet Earth, is also the sphere of the 4 archetypal elements. The next column gives the metals associated with the Sephiroth. Notice here that the first, second, and 10th Sephiroth have no metallic associations. This is followed by a column associating the Sephiroth with stones. The abbreviations used are as follows: Turk equals turquoise, star, Saf equals star sapphire, Ameth equals amethyst. The Kabbalistic view of the higher plane shows a very ordered universe. Each entity or power essence has others in its command to do its bidding. A simple diagram of this would be as follows: the unknowable divinity, the aspects of God, the God names, the archangels, the angels, the order of angels. Aspects of divinity are represented by the God names. The angels are frequently dealt with in groups known as orders. The angels do the biddings of the archangels obey God. God assigns the archangels tasks appropriate to their nature. The relationship an archangel has with divinity is via the aspect of the ultimate source, which is represented by the God names. The whole, rather militaristic structure is controlled by the unknowable divinity, the Ain. The first column on page 103 gives the Hebrew names of the archangels and is followed by the translations of the Hebrew names. The next column relates to the personality or soul and has already been discussed. It is represented here in brief, and much more detail will be added at a later time. This is followed by the translations of the Hebrew, transliteration of the Hebrew. This is followed by a listing of the angelic orders and then by the translations of those Hebrew terms. It is interesting to note that several of the names of the orders of angels and terms used by Ezekiel in his revelations. If you understand traditional Hebrew mysticism, the mystical book of Ezekiel became easier to understand. If you did not, you can come up with an absurd theories as to one NASA scientist did, claiming that Ezekiel saw an alien space vehicle. He claims that the descriptions Ezekiel used were merely a way of reporting the actions of spaceships. Coming back to Earth, most scholars believe that the angelic train of command was copied from the various Semitic peoples who had long lists of jinn and the like. Next come the magically important Hebrew letters Yud He Vav He, YHVH for short, the Tetragrammaton. I have already discussed, but let's add some more information. The Yud looks like this. The upper tip of the Yud is associated with the first Sephirah. The rest of the Yud, along with the He, which looks like this, is associated with the second through fourth Sephirah. The Vav is an elongated Yud and looks like this. It is related to the fourth through ninth Sephirah. Notice the overlap between the Vav and the He. The second or last He is related to the 10th Sephirah. The first He is known as the He superior, SUP, and the second He is known as the He inferior, Hebrew Hebrew is read from right to left, and the Tetragrammaton looks like this. Vertically, it looks like this. The creatures in the next column are both real and unreal, while the tools of the next column are magical tools. The layman is a medallion hung around the neck to represent a certain power or quality. The names are the various god, archangelic, and angelic names, along with the other words of power. The traditional magician of the Middle Ages wore two robes, an outer robe representing the silence necessary to being a magician, which concealed a hidden inner robe of truth. Today, most magicians wear only one robe, the two robes being more symbolic than actual. Finally, the last column is self-explanatory, with the sole added note that the plant associated with the first Sephiroth is an almond, all flower, that is, it will be blooming. The list of Kabbalistic correspondences is by no means complete, but it is a good start. I suggest that you make up a series of Tree of Lives, each filled out with one of the columns. You may wish to make up a very large Tree of Life, putting many of the correspondences associated with the Sephiroth in the drawing of that Sephiroth. I urge you a deep study of the correspondences now. Their importance will become clearer to you as we move into the study of Great Magic. For a far more complete version of this correspondences, get 777 by Aleister Crowley. It is the encyclopedia for practicing magician. Part 5. If you have been successful with the middle pillar ritual, you may go on to an advanced version of the ritual. Visualize each Sephiroth, each power center, in the colors given on the corresponding list. Da'at is lavender, and for Malkut, use black. The Sephiroth should be connected with a beam of white light. You may also vibrate the name of the archangels after vibrating the god names. Da'at, at the throat, does not have a Kabbalistic archangelic name, so we borrow from another language called Enochian or angelic. Use LXR Pefkomana Nu Ta'i To'im, the circulation of the body of light. Whether or not you are able to do the advanced version of the middle pillar ritual as given above, you should now add a new ritual to your daily practice. It should add no more than 2 or 3 minutes to the total time of your daily work. There are 3 parts to this ritual. Start by doing the Relaxation Ritual, the Lbrp, and the Middle Pillar Ritual, but do not visualize the middle pillar vanishing. First part. While keeping the visualization of the middle pillar, refocus your attention on Keter, the white brilliance just above your head. Visualize this brilliance in a state of extreme strength, needing to radiate but even more energy. Visualize its sending currents of energy down into the head, into the left shoulder. Let this energy pass down the left side of your body to your left foot. Feel it move to your right foot, and then up the right side of your body to your head, and back up to Keter. This motion should be synchronized with your breath. When you exhale, you feel the energy go down your left. When you inhale, you feel the energy go up your right side. You should have the sensation of a circle of energy swirling around you. Move the energy with your breath in 6 to 10 circles. Feel free to expand the energy further out to the sides, to the ends of the universe if you wish. Most commonly, it is seen as going out about 3 feet from the body. You might also wish to try contracting the energy so that it goes down the left side of the spine and up the right side of the spine. Second part. This is similar to the first method, but instead of directing the energy down one side and up the other, here you should direct the energy down the front of your body and up the back. Be sure to synchronize your breath so that as you exhale, the energy goes down the front of your body, and as you inhale, it goes up your back to your head and up to Keter. Third part, the mummy. Visualize the entire middle pillar. This time focus your attention on Malkut at the feet. From the upper right side of this power center, visualize the energy curling up in a tight spiral to the front of the left leg. From here, it continues around the back and continues moving upward in a counterclockwise spiral. It is as if you're being wrapped like an Egyptian mummy, from the feet to the head. Instead of cloth, however, you are being wrapped in energy. You should feel a whirling of spiritual powers as the pure spiritual light energy rises up in spirals to Keter. At Keter, you should visualize the energy exploding out like a water fountain in all directions. This energy lands at your feet and begins to rise in the spiral again as you inhale. Feel the energy rise towards Keter, and as you exhale, feel it explode out towards Malkut at your feet. As in the first and second parts, do it for 6 to 10 cycles. Then take a very deep breath, and as you exhale, see the energy disappear visually, but know that it is still there invisibly. Finish by doing the Two Contemplation ritual and filling out your ritual diary. Warning: the circulation of the body of light is a very powerful ritual. You may rock back and forth, feel dizzy, or even fall over as a result of your direction of spiritual energy. In Eastern systems, these sensations and their physical manifestations are known as kriyas, and the practice of their production is part of what is known as Kriya Yoga. In the Chinese yoga manual, The Secret of the Golden Flower, it says that when the light circulates, the powers of the whole body arrange themselves before its throne, just as a holy king takes possession of a capital and lays down rules of order, and all approach with tribute. Therefore, you have only to make the light circulate. That is the deepest and most wonderful secret. The light is easy to move, and if allowed to go long enough in a circle, it crystallizes itself. It is this condition in which it is said silently in the morning, thou fliest upward. The energy used in the circulation of the body of light ritual is so powerful that it can be used for healing purposes. Simply direct the energy which you have learned to control down your arms and out through your hands. This healing technique is especially good for people who are drained and low on energy. It is good for people who are recovering from almost any physical ailment. It can be used without any fear on people who have serious chronic disease. However, you should follow these rules. 1. Never attempt to heal a person without first getting that person's permission to do so. 2. If a person has a minor cold or flu, do not attempt to heal that person. They need the disease to get rid of the toxins which are in the body. If the disease has run its course and the person is still weak but recovering, then it's okay to help them recover faster. Place one hand on the forehead and the other on the lower stomach and send the energy which you have learned to control. 3. If a person has a serious life-threatening disease, focus your attention and hands near the area where the disease is most obvious. Visualize the disease leaving their body and fading into nothingness while you fill their body with new life-giving energy. As soon as you sense the person you are working on is filled with energy, do the Lbrp to make sure that absolutely nothing comes back. 4. Do not use this technique for a person who has a high fever. Instead, hold their hands and visualize the illness leaving their body and stay away from your body. Visualize the illness fading to nothing. Do the Lbrp. Finally, if you wish, you may send small amounts of energy which is colored and cooling blue. 5. Always finish with the Lbrp, the middle pillar ritual, and the circulation of the body of light ritual for yourself. Then run your hands under cool, fresh water for at least a minute. This cleanses you and helps to protect you from accidentally allowing any illness into you. 6. Always work in cooperation with MDs. Under no circumstances should you ever advise a person to not follow a doctor's advice or not seek the aid of a professional therapist. If, however, you honestly feel that a particular medical treatment is not helping someone, you can always advise that person to get a second opinion from another physician. And the next page is a diagram of the tarot as it exists on the Tree of Life. I am not going to make any comments on it at this time. Rather, I want you to spend some time looking at it and trying to discover the relationships between the tarot and the Kabbalistic Correspondences given earlier in the lesson. I am presenting it now, seemingly unrelated to the material in the preceding and following paragraphs, to draw attention to it. It may be the most important diagram for the magical techniques which will be given later in this course. It will be explained later at the proper time, but I want you to get some familiarity with it now so that it will not be something strangely new when its importance becomes evident. Study it with your tarot cards in hand and compare with what has already been given. Before moving on to the next part of this lesson, there's another thing I wish to clarify for you. You may be thinking that I will be adding on to the basic diary rituals until you have no time to do anything else. That is not the case. There's only one more basic ritual which you must learn. Do not give up. Do not omit any part of the rituals. Do not skip a day unless it is impossible not to do so. Everything that you are now doing is white magic, moving you towards unity with divinity. It is also a preparation for doing gray magic. If you memorize the rituals, they should not take longer than 15 minutes, and in a short time this course will give you a method for doing the rituals anytime, anywhere via a special mental process. It will take even less time to perform the rituals, and it will give you more personal power. Something in my classes, I have had students tell me that although they carry out the rituals with extreme care, they feel nothing within themselves or without as a result. They want to know why they are failing and what they are doing wrong. And their answer is that there is nothing wrong and that they are not failing. The energies involved in the rituals are continually at work throughout the physical and spiritual universe. The energy goes around and through all things, both physical and non-physical. It is everywhere. If you do not feel the motion of energy before, there is no guarantee that you will sense it after you have begun practicing the rituals. Magic permits us to utilize these forces in ways non-magicians cannot comprehend. It is not necessary that you have any weird experiences or unusual sensations as a result of the practice of the rituals in this course. If the rituals are done properly, the desired results must inevitably occur. If you throw a ball in the air, it must come down. This is the law of gravity. If you do the rituals properly, you must get the desired results. This is the cosmic law of magic. Sometimes, unusual experiences or sensations can actually get in the way of psychic development. Some people get sidetracked into trying to produce psychic phenomena. They end up spending time trying to do relatively useless things such as levitating or being able to see what symbols is on the back of a card, while spending time bending spoons. And what good is a bent spoon anyway? They ignore their magical work and retard their magical and spiritual progress. So some of you may feel or sense the energies that have been described in this and in previous lessons. Some of you for a while may not. But it doesn't matter. If you do the rituals properly, the magic will work. Know that you can do the rituals successfully. Dare to do them. Then do them. Then be silent about your achievements. Part 6. In this section, I'm going to be discussing primarily the use of the magical tool known as the Pentacle and its construction. First, however, I need to discuss the system of the magical elements. As you have probably heard, and as I have already briefly discussed, in the West we have a system of 4 magical elements. While this is not true now, nor to my knowledge has it ever been true, as far as I can tell, calling our system a 4-element system is blind to fool those outside the temples of wisdom. The fact that there have always been 5 magical elements. According to the Sefer Yetzirah, one of the oldest Kabbalistic documents extant, their order is as follows: the Spirit of God, air eminent from spirit, water eminent from air, part of the water became earth, fire eminent from water. Note that some people call the system as listed in this Sefer Yetzirah a 3-element system. This is because the element of spirit is ignored and an element of earth is not even considered a separately immanent element, but rather a mere part of elemental water. Some later Kabbalistic systems contend that element earth is also a combination of air and water, or a mixture of air, water, and fire. In any event, even though elemental earth may be considered a secondary element in traditional Kabbalah, it is still an element. Include spirit and earth with the 3 elemental Kabbalistic system, and we have our 5 elements of magic. In the West, of the magical 4 elements are frequently pictured around a pentagram. Isn't it obvious that there must be a 5th element so that each of the points of the pentagram can have a magical element associated with it? The missing element, of course, is the source of the other 4 elements, spirit. Spirit is the source of all that exists and is the divine light from beyond Kether. These are the symbols of the 5 elements. Below the symbols of the elements shown which element is associated with each point of the pentagram and the elements. But to get a really good idea as to how the elements interrelate, we must travel briefly to China. The Chinese mysticism There have never been a doubt of mislabeling of the numbers of elements of magic. They do have slightly different names, however, and here is how the Chinese and Western systems correspond. In the diagram below, you can see that the distributions of the Chinese elements around the pentagram are in a slightly different order than in the Western system shown earlier. But the Chinese system is well thought out. If you go clockwise around the pentagram of the 5 oriental elements, you are following what is called the cycle of creation or generation. Here's a symbolic explanation of the cycle. Fire burns down things, they eventually become earth, metals are created from earth, water comes through metal pipes, wood is created from the vital nutrients in water. Obviously, this is a modern interpretation, however, it aids in the remembering this cycle. If you follow the paths of the arms of the pentagram, you are following what is called the cycle of control or destruction. Here is a modern explanation of this cycle. Fire purifies or destroys metal. Metal, in the form of an axe blade, forms or destroys wood. Wood tools can be used to control earth. Dams of earth control water. Water extinguishes and destroys fire. Thus, we can see in the original system that a particular magical element can be used to do one of 3 things. 1. Enhance itself. 2. Enhance another element. Or 3. Counter another element. Now that you have had a chance to see a thought-provoking system of working with the magical elements, let me tell you that the Western system is much easier, especially when discussing the elemental tools. The Pentacle really has only 2 important purposes. It collects and directs the energies of elemental earth. What you use the energy for and how you use it is up to you. If you feel lightheaded, it can ground you. If you feel that you are under psychic attack via the elements of spirit, air, fire, or water, it can reflect those energies back upon their source. If you are attacked using the element of earth, it can either reflect the elemental energy or store it for your future positive use. Thus, for the operative magician, the pentacle is primarily a defensive weapon, meant neither to be used as a weapon except in case of attack. It can also, as mentioned, be used to direct and store earth energy for whatever purpose you desire. The next problem for us, knowing the purpose of the pentacle, is an appropriate construction. Most traditional base books recommend using a disc of wood or metal up to 9 inches in diameter. Now, as I have already said, this tool is also a defensive weapon. Grabbing a 9-inch circle of wood or metal and trying to direct it in the proper direction to dispel an attack on you would be like having someone jump you with a knife while you struggle to find a huge shotgun which doesn't even fire accurately. The answer to this problem is twofold. Firstly, an object 6 inches in diameter is far easier to use if you have an average size hand. Secondly, if the object, instead of being flat, is concave, it will return any energy from any direction back towards the direction from which it came. This creates a situation of instant karma for your attacker. What you can do is carve out or buy a shallow wooden bowl. The interior must be as perfectly concave as possible, although the back may be flat so that it can be balanced on the table or altar. A small ring of wood or metal placed on a table will allow you to balance a bowl with a round bottom on that said table. Metal can be used for your pentacle, but it is slightly harder to point a metallic surface than a wooden one. Lightly sand the surface and put on a white undercoat of primer. With a fine light brush, draw an X from edge to edge on both sides of your pentacle. This should divide both surfaces into 4 large triangles. Paint these citrate, olive, black, and brown as listed earlier in this lesson. Paint both sides. The black section on both sides should be directly opposite or back to back of each other. In this way, when you hold the pentacle from the bottom, you will be holding black on both sides of the pentacle. If the undercoat shows through, use a second coat. Using a compass, draw a circle 3 to 8 of an inch from the outer edge of the pentacle. Paint the ring white from the line to the edge, either freehand or with the aid of a compass. Draw out the pentagram so that the points of the arms of the pentagram should touch the white rings, which you have drawn on the front and back of the pentacle. The lines of the pentagram should be about 3/8 of an inch in width. If any of the background colors show through these white lines, keep adding coats of white paint until white is opaque. Next, fill in the circle with Hebrew letters of the god names, angelic names, etc., and the appropriate sigils as given on the next page. These should be painted in dark black. Extra coats for the lettering may be necessary. The lettering should be black, not gray. Finally, covering the entire pentacle with a protective clear coat of lacquer. I suggest the use of Varathine liquid plastic gloss. If you want more information on how to work with the paints and colors, I suggest the book The Secret Temple by Robert Wang. In it, he gives a method for building the Golden Dawn tools. If you get the book, you will see that the Golden Dawn used not a pentacle, but the pentagram on it but a hexacle with a hexagram on it. See photograph. Why they called it a pentacle, which is the prefix meaning 5, is beyond me. Of course, if you feel it necessary to make a Golden Dawn style pentacle, there is no reason why you should not. A pentagram is a 5-pointed star. A pentacle is an object with a pentagram on it. Finally, if you notice, there is a space listed on the page for a motto. This is the Golden Dawn equivalent of a magical name. Just as putting on your magical robes tell your subconscious that something special is happening, so does referring to yourself by your magical name or motto. Add to this intuitive understanding, many people take the magical names of someone they admire for their magical ability, real or imagined, such as Marilyn or other historical or mythical characters. Merlin, Rather than a name, it can also be something that you stand for or believe. The Golden Dawn's mottos were usually in Latin, but any language will do. Here is a list of samples. Anima pura sit, let the soul be pure. Demon est Deus inversus, the devil is the converse of God. Deo dus come te fero, with God as my leader, art the swords as my companion. Finem respice, have regard to the end. Perdurado, I will last through. Sacramentum regis, the sacrament of a king. Sapere ade, dare to be wise. And a aior, let there be light. Symbols and Hebrew for the pentacle. Place the sigils next to the Hebrew in the circle and lines of the pentagram. These people would usually refer to each other by the initials of their magical mottos. Thus, you would have Frater or Sorrow, brother or sister, DDCF, DEDI, SA, etc. English, Latin, Hebrew, or any other language would be fine to use for your magical name or motto. You should spend some time considering what name you will use. True, you can always change, but you will find that its choice will be important and more meaningful to you as you evolve magically. Part 7. Perhaps you have wondered what the difference is between ceremonial magic and ritual magic. Many people use them interchangeably as synonyms, and in fact, their dictionary definitions are quite similar. However, in magical philosophy, there is an important difference. Anyone can do a ritual. It can be a magical ritual, or a ritual of another kind, such as shaving ritual, wherein you shave yourself according to a certain pattern. After a period of practice, some rituals, such as shaving ritual, become habits. To break the ritual, that is, to follow an unusual pattern, can cause problems. It can make you feel uncomfortable and can possibly be harmful. If you don't believe me, try shaving yourself in a different manner than usual. But don't be surprised if you end up cutting or nicking yourself in many places. This then is an important caveat. Never let your magical rituals become habits. Always do them with full awareness, even if you have been doing them every day for years. By definition of a ceremony is a group ritual. That is, it only takes one person to do a ritual, while it takes several people to perform a ceremony. Thus, in order to do ceremonial magic, you must have a group of some sort. Although all the magical techniques in this course will be presented so that they can be performed by individual ritualists, in the future there will be notes given on how to do rituals with a group. This leads to the question of the values and drawbacks of groups. The benefits of magical groups are threefold. 1. Camaraderie. Sometimes being a magician can be a lonely prospect, and it can be a nice thing to have a friend who has similar interests. 2. Specialization. Everyone in a magical group must have similar knowledge to a degree, but no one can be an expert in all fields of occultism. In a group, one person may be a specialist with the tarot, although everyone in the group should be familiar with the tarot. Another is a specialist in astrology, another in occult history, and another in ceremonial and ritual. Thus, the more people you have, the greater the chance that your group needs information on will be known by one. The greater the chance that a subject your group needs information on will be known by one of the members. 3. Power. In spite of the fact that some people will deny it, the truth is that more people you have, the higher levels of psychic energy which may be generated. Perhaps you have experienced the flows of energy at a rock concert or a football game. This is nothing more than a poorly controlled psychic energy. With magic, we learn how to control this energy via the techniques you have been learning. Obviously, the intensity is increasing in proportion to the number of people present. Further, the amount of energy increases geometrically rather than via simple addition. This means that if one person generates E amount of psychic energy, 2 people may generate 2E, 3 people may generate 4E, 4 people may generate 8E, 5 people may generate 16E, and 6 people may generate 32E. 7 people may generate 64E, etc. As you can see, even a few people together can have a stronger effect than a large number working individually. This, by the way, is not a theory I made up. It is based on Einstein's field of theories and is accepted by most occultists with whom I am familiar. This does not mean, however, that having a group of people will automatically make you successful in your magical work. An individual magician may be far more in control of the psycho-magical energy than a group. Sometimes an individual may be more successful than a group for just this reason. This is also why I wrote above that a group of people may be able to generate more than an individual. Certainly a group of incompetents would not be able to outdo one well-trained magician. This brings us to the drawbacks associated with groups. I have a close friend, a well-respected author of several books on magical topics, who believes that group workings are obsolete and impractical. This opinion is due to his personal experience with some groups. I too have experienced much the same. Always, and I do mean always, the problems associated with groups are based on one problem and one problem only: personal psychology. Cliques form and people locked out of the cliques feel hurt and left out. Person A won't work with person B because person B is too A, smart, B, dumb, C, ugly, B, D, beautiful, or E, other. Somebody institutes plots against the leader, someone wants to change the group so that it fits their image, or what the group should be rather than changing himself or herself as to fit in with the group. It's all so very stupid. This sort of nonsense has gone on for years between groups too. Various groups calling themselves Rosicrucian all insist that only they are the real Rosicrucians and all the other groups are frauds. Various witchcraft and Wiccan groups involve themselves in this same sort of foolishness. One famous magical group currently has about 5 or 6 people claiming to be the true leader of the organization and that the others are all fakes. This disagreement has led to outrageous name-calling and to court cases. What can a person who wants to work with a group of others with similar interests do? First, he or she can forget about the whole thing. But if that doesn't work, he or she can start a group from scratch. Then as more and more people become involved, each person in their tradition of Freemasons must be accepted by all of the current members of the group before the person is allowed to join. Thus, the people must first meet on a social level before becoming involved on a magical level. The group must be a small circle of friends. Some witches claim the size of magical groups could be no more than 13. Hence 13 is the maximum size of many covens. Also, the goal of all the people in the magical group must be unified. There must be no ulterior motives for any of the people being in the group. Israel Regardie strongly suggested that all people involved with occultism should go through psychotherapy. For a long time, I have felt that this was because he was a Reichian therapist. But because of my experience with many groups and with the experience told to me by others, I am at a point now where I am inclined to agree with the good doctor. Unfortunately, most of us have either the time nor the desire to go to an analyst. Many people can afford it. Also, there is a wide degree of quality among psychotherapists. How will you know if you have a good one? One who won't start out by having you locked up for studying the occult. Luckily, there is an answer. It is a powerful psychotherapeutic and magical technique that can be used with which I call the IOB. IOB. The IOB technique is not new, but it is a new interpretation of traditional Golden Dawn magical techniques and medieval psychology techniques. The Golden Dawn aspect includes a simple version of the formulation of talismanic images and certain banishing techniques. The medieval psychology technique is commonly called exorcism. Of course, ever since the movie The Exorcist, people have become familiar with the idea of exorcism. It is commonly thought of as a way to get rid of demons or devils if they exist, which may be possessing a person. Obviously, possessing demons are fairly rare these days, yet in medieval literature they seem to be fairly common. We must ask ourselves what happened to them. The conclusion must be either they have almost totally ceased to bother people, or they never existed, or the modern interpretation of these demons is different. While there is no reason to believe that demons said to possess people in the Middle Ages have changed, and with all the reports of exorcisms during that period, there is little reason to assume that all the reports were faulty. Therefore, we may assume that the demons are being handled in a different manner. If you look at the reports of the exorcism, you must be struck by the similarity between the descriptions of the possessed and the people who today would be described as having certain psychical or mental problems. So even if we are to assume that some exorcisms did deal with demon possessions, it seems that many dealt with a sort of early psychotherapy and tradition of what is today known as psychodrama. These techniques are associated only with medieval Christian philosophy. Similar techniques were used in some initiatic systems, but for our purposes here, the most important thing to know is that in many cases, the exorcisms worked. The Golden Dawn system of talismanic images is based on a complex technique of visualizations according to a pre-established code of construction. It is too complex to discuss in its full form here. The idea, however, is to create an image of something which in itself is devoid of form. Thus, justice could be made to have a specific image. So could freedom become a particular angel or archangel, and tolerance could be visualized as a demon. Then once this image was created, it could be given a life of its own to a limited extent. Finally, it could be dealt with as if it were a living, breathing entity like you or me. Notice that I said that something like intolerance could be given a form. Likewise, any quality, good or bad, can be given a form. It is this idea, along with the idea that exorcisms was a way of getting rid of psychological problems, that is the basis of IOB technique. A word of warning. It may be that going to a positive, growth-oriented psychotherapist who is not against occult studies may be better for you than attempting the IOB technique. This is because the IOB technique is the only thing in this entire course which could be considered dangerous. By this, I do mean that demons might attack you or you might get ill. What I mean is that through this technique, you will learn more about your true nature than you will be able to accept. It is said that over the doors of the ancient mystery schools, we've seen the phrase, know thyself. Really knowing yourself can be the most awe-inspiring and frightening experience imaginable. So if you opt to attempt this technique and find yourself scared, physically ill, or feeling lost, stop immediately. This mind has certain blocks and safeguards which prevent us from learning the innermost truths about ourselves until we are ready. Go slow, be gentle, and be kind to yourself. If you try this system, it is very powerful. The I in IOB stands for identity. Your first and hardest task in this technique is to identify aspects of yourself which is no longer your wish to possess. Are you hard-headed, egotistical, self-centered, insecure, undecisive? Whatever it is, your first task is to identify it. Now, at the beginning, this is quite safe, although it may not be too easy to admit to these things which you consider to be your own faults. Later, it will become easier to admit your faults on a conscious level, but your unconscious may resist your conscious. This will be the time to go easy. Never force something if it will not come easily. Work on one thing at a time. This process may be time consuming, but it is far shorter and cheaper than Freudian analysis, and it does work. The second step is the easiest and most fun. The O and the IOB stands for objectify. The idea here is to build an image which represents what you have identified. This can be any form, although it should be preferably be capable of life. Thus, a rock would not be as good for this technique as would an L for a dog or an image of a demon. Let's assume that you have determined that one of the things which you wish to rid yourself of is hard-headedness, the inability to change. In this step, we want to objectify this hard-headedness, make it into a thing. We can make up any image, but for our purpose here, let us give it a somewhat human appearance. Its face must have firmly chiseled features. And he, let's make it a male, has an army helmet on. His eyes are steel gray. He is tall and strong, but the joints of his legs and hips do not work, so his strength is useless. He is wearing a steel gray jumpsuit, and beneath it are seen hard muscles which never relax. In fact, in some places, the muscles look like nuts and bolts. Although it is hidden, it is possible to sense that he feels great pain because he never relaxes. Must always be hard. There is a fear of not being right, etc. In this way, an image of hard-headedness is built up. All of the things I mentioned are objectifications of the archetype of hard-headedness. If this happens to be an aspect of yourself which you have wished to work on, you can start with what I have given and continue. What color is his skin, his hair? Don't be limited by standard colors. Is he holding anything, doing anything? Lastly, name this creation. You can use any name as long as it is not the name of someone you know or know of. Again, it does not have to be standard. I-G-I-S, hard G, is short and applicable. Grial flexor is an interesting and perfectly acceptable appellation. Spend some time making this image as concrete as possible in your mind. You may wish to draw it if you have some artistic abilities. Also, it does not have to be in human form. It can be shaped like a bizarre animal. In fact, that might even be better. Once you have created this image, the next step is giving it life. Visualize the figure and do the Lbrp around both you and the figure. If you have made a painting or sculpture of the image, use that as a focus of the Lbrp. Make the physical art creation and the mental image unite. Next, do the middle pillar technique. When you sense the energy in the middle pillar, take a deep breath with full exhalation. Send the life-giving, literal energy down your arms and out of your hands toward the figure which you have mentally created. If you have a physical representation of the image, send it toward that figure. The B in IOB stands for banish. This is the magical equivalent of exorcism. However, the process of banishment, though based on the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, is a little tricky because we are banishing an unwanted part of ourselves. Step 1. Purify the outside of yourself with a ritual bath as already described. Step 2. Do the relaxation ritual. Step 3. If you have a picture or sculpture of your objectification, look at it for a few minutes, then put the physical image away and work Work it up in your imagination. If you have no physical image, simply mock it up in your imagination. Step 4. As part of your visualization, you should see a wispy cord or rope-like construction connecting you and the figure. It should be connected to both your bodies at the solar plexus. If it does not have a solar plexus, then it should be attached to the heart area or head. Remember, your visualization needs to be only as good as you can make it. It does not have to be perfect. In fact, if you are not good at visualizing things, simply know, not think or believe, but know that it is there, and that if your psychic vision were better, you would be able to see it. Step 5. Now take your dagger and cut the connecting cord close to your body. If you do not have a dagger, use 2 fingers of your right hand as if they were a pair of scissors. Step 6. Without a second's pause, after step 5, make the sign of the Enterer. Left foot forward as arms are thrust forward, dagger or right forefinger along with the left forefinger pointing straight ahead, directly at the newly separated figure. At the same time, project a bright blue pentagram at the figure from your fingers and shout, "Name of the object, be gone." This should cause the visualization to move a short distance away and stay there long enough for you to perform. Step 7. The Lbrp. When this is completed, the created figure should be outside of your protective circle. Make sure that there is no trace of the severed cord which did exist between you and the figure. Step 8. Determine which tool would be the appropriate weapon to destroy the figure. Here are some examples. For hard-headedness, unwillingness to change, the chalice. For fickleness, the pentacle. For sloth, the wand. For lack of clear thinking, the dagger. As you can see, the appropriate tool represents the opposite qualities of what you wish to get rid of yourself. Water is always changing, so the chalice is a good weapon against unwillingness to change. The solidity of earth, as represented by the pentacle, is a good weapon against constantly changing the mind. The energy, represented by the fire wand, is a good weapon against laziness. And since air represents our higher faculties, air's tool, the dagger, is a good weapon against a lack of clear thinking. Step 9. Point the appropriate weapon at the figure. Be sure to drink the contents of the chalice if it is filled. The instructions for how to point the pentacle are to simply hold it by the black sections and face the concave side in the direction you wish to point. Pointing the wand and dagger are obvious. Hold the chalice by its stem or base with the section for holding fluid facing out, away from you. If you do not have the tools as yet, just use the outward-facing palms of your hands and say, "By the power and in the name of Shai Dai El Chai, vibrate the God name. I command you, name of the created image, to dissolve, vanish, depart, disappear. You are banished forever and may not return, so mote it be." This must be said with authority, as if you were a mighty king or queen talking to your lowliest subject. Remember, though, that it is not that will destroy what you don't want, but the power of the divine going through you. Mote is an Old English word meaning must. Step 10. Do the middle pillar ritual very briefly. Then, as in the circulation of the body of light, feel the energy come down from above, but this time direct it down your arms and out of your hands through the appropriate magical tool, if you have it, through the center of the pentagram and in front of you. It must not go anywhere else. And into your creation. Visualize the energy getting stronger and the figure getting weaker and increasingly transparent. With each exhalation, the energy leaving you should be stronger and stronger until the created figure is totally overpowered and vanishes into nothingness. Continue this sending of energy in the name of divinity for at least a minute after the figure is totally destroyed. Step 11. Now hold your hands up in the air so that they form a larger letter V. If you used a magical tool, it should be in the right hand pointing up. Look up and say, "Hail unto thee, Lord of the universe. Hail unto thee, whom nature hath not formed. Not unto me, but unto thee be the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen." Step 12. Once again, do the Lbrp. Then visualize your magical circle fading from your attention, but know that it is still there. Write down the results in your diary. The IOB technique can help you solve many of your problems, but remember you are just a magician in training. A chef learning to cook does not always have his or her food come out perfectly, and your IOB technique may not be perfect at first either. You may need to repeat this technique several times in order to get rid yourself of something you do not want. If you have created or purchased an artistic version of your visualization, it should be totally destroyed after doing the IOB, and if the problem is not succumbing to your work, go on to another aspect of your personality you wish to alter and come back to the previous problem later. If you and other members of the group practice the IOB technique regularly, it is possible that your group will work harmoniously together. And if you want to work alone, your own work on the IOB technique will make you a better person. Review. The following questions are designed to help you determine if you have mastered the information in Lesson 3. Please try to answer them without looking at the text. The answers are in Appendix 2. 1. What are the qualities of the element Earth? 2. Name the 3 pillars of the Tree of Life. 3. Name the 3 triangles of the Tree of Life. 4. Name the 4 worlds of the Kabbalah. 5. What is the goal of true meditation? 6. What are the 3 steps of true meditation? 7. How can you be assured of never becoming a real magician? 8. In the Kabbalah, what is the heavenly order of things? 9. When is it okay to heal a person who has not given you permission to do so? 10. Are rituals a failure if you sense no immediate change within yourself or your outside self? 11. Why is it a good idea to make a concave pentacle? 12. List 3 benefits of being involved in a magical group. 13. What does IOB mean? The following questions only you can answer. 1. Are you regularly performing all of the rituals? 2. Do you meditate? 3. Are you in control of the earth element? 4. Are you memorizing the correspondences? 5. Do you look up the meanings of any words in this course that you are unfamiliar with? For example, did you know that a basilisk has the head, wings, and feet of a rooster with a barbed serpent's tail? It was said to be hatched from a chicken's egg that a toad or serpent sat on. Its breath and look were said to be fatal. It was also known as a cockatrice.